A whole host of cut content, marine AI that now includes ODSTs whose behavior scales with difficulty, some of the most unique flood combat forms I've ever seen, encounters that truly stand out. What changes could possibly be made to my favorite Halo title to make it any better? This is the question I've continuously asked myself as I keep seeing Ruby's rebalanced Halo mod at the top of the Steam Workshop for several months now. I've always loved the corniness and cheesiness of the original Halo, but this mod helped me break out of the nostalgia cycle and appreciate something new. Unlike this mod's name in its original mission suggests, this mod is more than just a rebalancing. It's a restoration of cut content, it's enhancement, it's modernization. With all the Marines and added strategy, dare I say it, it's nearly military simulation. But let's start from the top. Starting right at the beginning of Two Betrayals, you start with this pretty weird encounter. You end up cheesing some sentinels behind an invincible piece of glass, but now you can actually press forward with a Sentinel Beam, an essential anti-flood weapon that fits Halo CE very well. 23 years of Halo CE muscle memory means I throw a grenade as soon as this door opens, so naturally I defecate myself with excitement when I noticed it's not the Covenant coming through the door, it's my own personal squad of ODSTs fighting some sentinels. And no, this isn't just a reskin, it's marine AI that actually scales depending on the difficulty that you're playing on. And much like my other favorite mod, Better with Friends, this is where the narrative rewrite begins to happen.
Alright, lock and load, check the wounded, they're gonna be back.
Madre Dios, Covenant reinforcements on the move. We have a dropship moving our way. Everybody get ready for company!
And there we have it. The control room is attacked by wave upon wave of Sentinels and Covenant, who prove to be absolutely no match for Sergeant Johnson and his big green style. The Marines take up tactical positions around you and strategically defend you against these waves. Not wanting to leave my Marines for dead, I left them for dead and realized how big this place was and how I needed to get out of here with the Banshee down the canyon. Even as I decided to cheese this section like I normally do in vanilla CE, the Marines have already placed themselves strategically, creating a path for me. Sergeant Stacker and some of his men are placed facing the Wraith, where just like in vanilla CE, I'd make a break for it and try and grab a Banshee. As I came back to defend the Marines I accidentally on purpose left behind, it's here where I started to notice some of the first rebalances that have happened in this mod. The Banshee has some notable improvements to its handling and speed, matching that of the later Halos, and also increasing its fire speed of the cannons. As I scaled back up the building, making sure all the Marines were safe, I hit a control point and I was finally able to go up to the first generator room. There's a neat little touch that now it's being guarded. Unfortunately, the guard is just one grunt strong. Some more muscle memory means I get to spam some grenades to stop the sentinels here, and that's when I noticed that the plasma rifle has had a serious buff, giving it more damage, Halo 2 audio for the firing sounds, and a decrease to battery consumption. Our second yeehaw hell yeah cowboy moment comes in the form of this pelican. Dangling from it, holding on for dear life, is an ODST firing homing rockets at grunts. Guys will really see this and be like, hell yeah. After the biggest Chad known to man has finished demolishing all these aliens, it's time to start experiencing some of that awesome rebalancing. Whilst the shotgun appropriately has less ammunition now and can't be used as a one-trick pony, it's offset by the fact the fuel rod cannon is now usable in single player, which is essentially a tactical nuke. I didn't have Xbox Live growing up, and the fuel rod cannon plus the flamethrower were not available in the single player campaign. But something not available to any of us was cut content such as the Shadow. This is how the vehicle would have functioned, with a stationary shade type turret on the top, and Marines would sit on the flanks. That is, once you'd eliminate the Sangheili that would have been driving this bad boy. This modder does a fantastic job of spicing up levels that would otherwise be a little stale. I'm specifically talking about those levels that were reused, like Assault on the Control Room being repurposed as Two Betrayals. The only reason why this mod is a 12 out of 10 instead of a 13 out of 10 is because of the removal of Covenant Dance. Now I understand what the modder was going for. They're actually trying to invoke some horror with the music choice as opposed to using one of the fattest beats of all time. Please note that this is sarcasm, but I just want to remind everyone, everything you've seen here is a result of a stylistic choice by this modder. The substitution of audio, the placements of weapons on the ground, the rebalancing of weapons, the editing of narrative. I don't know who Ruby is and I refuse to look them up before uploading this video to avoid any bias. But they have to have such a thorough understanding of CE vanilla to truly understand how to enhance it. And for that, I totally understand why this mod is featured at the top of the workshop all the time. Speaking of having great taste, notice how the Flood here are represented so much more interestingly than Vanilla CE. The Sangheili forms are actually shielded, as they should be. There's ODST Flood forms walking around with their helmets still attached. This attention to detail is better than any combat form we've ever seen across any Halo, and yet it's so simple. This mod seems to have gone through several iterations from the Steam comments I've been reading on the workshop. So I'm not too surprised that the name only mentions rebalancing, which was the first thing this mod seems to have set out to do. It looks like a vast number of core features have been added later in this mod's lifecycle, hence it may be easy to overlook this mod based upon its name, Rebalanced. But as you can see here, rebalancing goes beyond just weapons. This whole corridor has been rebalanced. Normally you'd be absolutely destroyed by rocket flood at the end of the corridor. Ruby acknowledges that, and still puts one flood in a fixed position which is easier for you to see, nodding to the original chaos of this section of the level. Speaking of chaos, this modder has managed to get flood-infected engineers floating around this place. Their imagination is endless. And that imagination continues as we get into these flood-infested hives. What an awesome way to rework rooms that have otherwise just been copy and pasted and put in the same linear sequence as Assault on the Control Room. I thought it was just a rework of the room layout, but it turns out this room is an ambush and I was really caught off guard. Despite all my Chad talk about muscle memory, I actually couldn't remember which was the way out of this room, I was so flustered. The original creepy elevator scene is made even creepier. It's not quite a grave mind, but a massive lump of flood biomass is now hanging at the top of the elevator. This actually signals new players to maybe look up as the elevator goes down. Because of the tech limitations at the time, the infection forms don't really fall down until you're at the bottom of the shaft. I fell for these flood forms that normally fall in the original Vanilla CE because of this body placed here. This room has now been turned into an infected hive, and Ruby has added a bunch of what can only be described as classic ventilation shaft noises, hinting at flood scurrying around the infrastructure. But things are absolutely no better outside as you realize you are truly on your own, just like you were in the original level of Two Betrayals. I thought I was safe when I grabbed the ghost, but the Flood and the Covenant are seriously dug in. I tried to escape while shooting, but the shadow almost destroyed my ghost, so I had to continue the rest of this section on foot and flee. I just about made it on foot and fled into the tunnel, where I was happy to find what I think must be my first rocket hog that I've seen in a campaign. Awesome! It's here where I realized that Ruby has worked so hard to remove some of those janky mechanics that we experienced from Vanilla CE. Yes, those mechanics gave this game some charm, but remember that this is a more complete and fleshed out version of the game, so it's only appropriate that some of that stuff is tamed down. I'm talking about splattering these hunters. It's virtually impossible to kill somebody in a clean sweep if they have this much health, so you can't just depend on touching them at 1 mile an hour with your vehicle to fight them. These sorts of gameplay rethinks are what actually makes a mod like this great. Remember, the vast majority of people playing this know the game like the back of their hand. For a nearly unexplainable reason, I had the chills going into the bridge section. I was worried. I just knew that something was going to be up, and I was right.
There's so many I can't track them all.
That flood hive theming comes back in a huge open span of space. Just as you start to recognize the ambush of the infection forms, you start getting shelled by fuel rod cannons. As opposed to the flood just rushing you in Vanilla CE, I think the placement here is so much more interesting. There's a barrier that you yourself have to jump over to commit yourself to the final fight, and once you do, you'll have to fight wave after wave of shielded elites that actually are hard to kill. But nothing quite prepared me for how excited I was going to be for the final run section of this level. Don't get me wrong, I love playing video games where there's 3 factions warring against each other. But Ruby makes it so it's not just challenging, but actually entertaining. You see the first wave of flood running at you as opposed to fighting the Covenant already in the far corner of this canyon. And whilst I'm fighting for my life against this Banshee, I thank Ruby for the fact that vehicles don't instantly splatter. Look how I still actually have a bar of health left after being hit a few times within 1 second. That of course is going to make the rest of this fight hard as I see a flood form running at me with an energy sword. This gives me all the inspiration I need to become John Spartan 118, dial an energy sword and start fighting all the flood by hand. The limitations of the original model means there's no lunge like in Halo 2 onwards, but it's still incredibly satisfying and very powerful. Clinging on to just 1 HP, I finish up the enemies here and make it to the end of the canyon where I'm in for quite a surprise. The narrative change-up means that the Covenant now are truly aware of your intentions and they start destroying their own Banshees and other vehicles to stop you from escaping. It makes it incredibly hard with 2 raids, multiple hunters, and a bunch of elites also fighting rocket flood. I noticed a parked Wraith at the back of the section, and I realized I was going to have to clear out as many enemies as possible before the flood arrived and try and take a Banshee when no one was looking. Here's exactly how that went. This modder pushes the technical limitations of a 23-year-old game engine and combines it with their own knowledge of the Halo universe to create something that us nostalgia hoarders will truly appreciate. RWBY's Rebalance mod isn't just rebalancing, it's original content, it's cut content restoration, it's rethinking of the original narrative, but more importantly, it's a way for me to tell you I'm about to drop the hardest metal cover of the Halo theme. I'm taking a break from game-related footage this week, but I'll see you next time for a music release.